wrong with the idea of taking away the power from a secret group of individuals to print money at will? You know, I mean, about following the Constitution. You know, that sounds like a pretty reasonable thing to do. But those who will mock us for wanting to follow the Constitution, I don't know whether they just don't read it, or don't care, or they don't understand it, or just what. But they don't want to pay attention to it. I think one of the problems, if we want to be generous and give them the benefit of the doubt, so many over the last many decades, maybe 40 or 50 years, we have been taught in our educational system that it shouldn't be a rigid document. It should be a flexible document. It should be changing with the times, and therefore they can say, well, anything we want to say, it does. I don't think those individuals who take the oath of office in Washington and never seem to follow it, I don't think they lose any sleep at all. I think they said, well, we're just doing what's right, and this is the way it's supposed to be. We don't want to be overly rigid. Well, the founders gave us a perfect way of changing things if we want to modernize our Constitution. And that is amend it. Don't just ignore it. This is where the crisis has come from. We as a people have allowed our politicians and our courts in the executive branch as well as the legislative branch to just plain out ignore the Constitution. So we are acting outside the law. We don't have law right now. For instance, you know, it's been 50 years or so that the federal government's been involved in public education. Now, the Constitution doesn't address the education only indirectly. It implies that the states and the individuals and the churches would work this out among the states. But there's no explicit authority for the federal government to run public education. Therefore, we shouldn't even have a Department of Education. Let's say the people and the majority say, well, we think the federal government should. If they want to, what they should have done is amend the Constitution, said now the federal government's going to take over education. But the fact that we can go from no federal government authority to be involved to the point where you can't do anything without the federal government permission, that transition, when it was done this way, that means that the rest of the Constitution doesn't have much meaning. The monetary issue. Is there any meaning in the Constitution? It still says only gold and silver can be legal tender. You can't emit bills of credit, which is paper money. There's no authority for a central bank, and look at what we have. So it's the lack of respect for the rule of law that has gotten us into this mess. So someday, if we want to survive as a republic, we're going to have to change that. We cannot be an empire run by the dictatorship of the majority to run a welfare warfare state. If that continues, we're going to go off a cliff in not too many years from now. But right now, I can report to you from my many visits across the country that there's a lot of people that are now with us and are determined that they know exactly where the problems come from and what we ought to do, and our numbers are growing. Obviously in the monetary policy and the entitlement system, we as a nation have come around to the acceptance that an entitlement is a right. An entitlement sounds pretty good. I mean, if you're entitled to something, it sounds like a right, but it's all mixed up. We as individuals are entitled to our life and to our liberty, but we're not entitled to somebody else's life or liberty. Because of our carelessness, now we have developed a system around that we're going to have perfect fairness and perfect equality. It's something that is a goal of socialist communist nations. Perfect equality can be achieved, and it has been achieved in some of those nations. but it's usually by downgrading, putting everybody down into the poverty level, destroying all their rights. Yes, they're equal, but they're equally harmed by what the government has done. What we want to do is make the emphasis on individual liberty. Everybody deserves their life and their liberty. It should be guaranteed by the government. It comes from our Creator in a natural way, and it does not come from our government. Respect for the idea of private property. In many ways, if you defend private property, you can defend all your civil liberties. If you have a church, it's a piece of property. If you protect that property, you protect what's in that property, and that is our churches or our homes or our own personal lives. If that would be protected, then we would be much better off. But what has happened today, because of this idea that we're going to have perfect equality, we've also come to the belief that we can have perfect safety. And of course the founders, and especially Benjamin Franklin, warned, if you're willing to give up your liberties for safety, you're neither going to be safe nor are you going to be free. And unfortunately, that is where we are. We should never have to give up or never be tempted to give up any liberty to be safer, because it won't make us any safer. There's been a dramatic change in direction in these attitudes, although they've been gradual over many, many decades, maybe 70, 80, 90 years. It's been dramatic in the last 10 or 12, especially since 9/11. Because of the horrors of 9/11, people were very concerned, but they were too willing to give up their liberty. All you have to look, if you just see the demonstrations and the pictures of what happens by TSA agents at the airport, how in the world could we survive if we put up with these illegal, unconstitutional searches and prodding of our bodies and x-raying of our bodies, where it hasn't made us any safer whatsoever? That we need to change. After 9/11, which we all shared in the concern about what was happening, Congress rushed the bill to the floor. The bill had been written many years ago and had been just sitting around waiting for an opportunity for it to be passed. And within a week or two, it was brought to the floor, rewritten, updated, a very, very detailed piece of legislation, 800 or 900 pages, 1 hour's of debate, and it was vote up and down, yes or no. It was called the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act should never have been passed and ought to be repealed. I was sitting next to another congressman when we were voting on it, and I called his attention to it. I said, you know, how come you're voting for this? And I was voting against it, in case you didn't know.